Over the years, I've been told many times that I have a lot of self-discipline. And initially, when I was younger, I thought that was pretty cool. But as I got older, I started to understand what I was doing. It's not that I have discipline in the way that people usually think of discipline. It's that I'm clear on my values and my goals, and it makes how I move through the world look like I have a lot of discipline. And people who apparently have a lot of discipline don't necessarily. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control, from Fitness to Flourishing. What looks like discipline is often just clarity. I remember once when I was working in car sales, and there was a bit of a routine where probably once a week, if I remember right, someone would bring in pizza, maybe some other treats like donuts, and I would never take part. That was when it started, in a way. People would say, "Oh, you have so much discipline. I just can't help myself," they would say. And then they would chow down on whatever was on offer that day. I found that interesting because it wasn't even an option. I thought, yeah, but that doesn't support my goals. Like, why would I eat that stuff? And I thought it's interesting because it's like I don't see it the same way that someone who, in quotes, can't resist. And what I noticed about myself was that my brain didn't take seeing that type of food and then running through scenarios of, ooh, what would that feel like if it was on my tongue? And what if I was eating a slice? How would that feel? My brain would just do nothing with it. It was just scan across, oh, look, pizza, oh, donuts, and then move on to whatever it was that I was doing at the time. When there are studies on people who have, again, what's considered self-discipline, more discipline than others, we'll say, it's very similar. They respond to the circumstances of their lives differently than others. So when a self-disciplined person goes to the store, they're looking for the healthy options. And if they happen to walk past or through an aisle with junk food, or what they consider junk, they see it, but they don't pay attention to it. It's just something they have to walk past. Someone who's struggling with those types of choices will experience in their imagination that food that they see. You may notice this yourself when you go to a store and you are hungry. That experience of shopping for food is different than if you go after already having eaten. You're stuffed, couldn't eat another bite. That's the best time if you want to make better choices. Not only that, but you can obviously make a shopping list. But if you go with a shopping list of the healthy choices and you're still hungry when you do that, those tempting offers will catch your attention. And your mind will start to imagine, what would that feel like if I ate something like that on the drive home? I could just snack on it. There are ways to prime your mind for these scenarios. There's a really interesting book called Giving Voice to Values by Mary C. Gentile. The book itself lays out how an individual can remain consistent with their values when they happen to perhaps be in a work environment that's pressuring them to act counter to their own standards of excellence. In the book, it references a study about people that were labeled rescuers. These were individuals who took it upon themselves to help those threatened by the Nazis in World War II. One of the things the researchers found that these rescuers had in common was that they had gone through the process of imagining circumstances in which their values would be challenged. And they imagined working out what they would do if it actually happened. They were priming their minds. They thought about it. What would I do if something like this happened? They were consciously working through what later became an easier, more natural choice, even at the risk of their own lives. That's an extreme example, but you can take that lesson and apply it to the challenges that you may be having with making the right food choices. You can set aside some time and imagine, what would you do if somebody brought pizza to work and you're trying not to eat that? Another book that's relevant here is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This book goes over how to change your self-identity, because according to Maltz, we will always act consistent with what our self-identity is. One of the things that he suggests is setting aside up to 30 minutes a day to imagine yourself acting in the ways that you would prefer to act. So a shy person might imagine themselves acting with confidence. And in the book it says, the next important thing to remember is that during this 30 minutes, you see yourself acting and reacting appropriately, successfully, ideally. It doesn't matter how you acted yesterday. You do not need to try to have faith you will act in the ideal way tomorrow. Your nervous system will take care of that in time if you continue to practice. See yourself acting, feeling, being as you want to be. Do not say to yourself, I am going to act this way tomorrow. Just say to yourself, I'm going to imagine myself acting this way now for 30 minutes today. So in Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz is essentially describing the same thing, where you imagine a scenario and how you would prefer to act and make the choices that you would prefer to make in those scenarios. Again, priming the mind for how you want to be. You'll just be acting naturally, easily, through habit, through automatic pilot. That looks a lot like discipline, but it's not the discipline in the moment that people see. It's the discipline you put into imagining those scenarios, those circumstances, and priming your mind to be consistent with your values and to make the choices consistent with your most important goals. That's the actual discipline. People think discipline is what happens in the moment. And it can happen then, but that takes a lot more effort. But if you're priming your mind to make the right choice in that imagined circumstance, it will be much easier to actually follow through. This is what the research by Peter Gollwitzer revealed. The implementation intentions. That's why those work, because you're priming your mind. You're putting in the effort beforehand, before the circumstance, before the event. Then when the event occurs, you relax and you just let your conditioned self do what you have trained it to do. That's it for today. Catch you next time.